not because we think it's not good information, just we're required to say that.
Isn't that terrible? I
Yeah.
don't know. I don't know. It's okay. What the
Well,
heck?
it's to protect, I guess. Hold on, let me see. This is going to start here. And to make sure there aren't people who don't have your best interest at heart giving you information, right? But
Right.
Dr. Saunders, we know means well.
Yeah. And
All
today's
right.
conversation is going to be about how to be successful. Is this going to be about in life with your heart?
Yeah,
With
all of it. All of it.
all of it?
When you, can I just get started?
Yes,
Go.
you go for it.
Okay. When you have something to do in life, when you have anything, a project that you're doing, when you want to be successful in anything, if you're starting a business, if you're learning how to play the piano, if you're learning something new, growth always happens through four things. And there's only four things. And it's that simple. Without those four things, you don't grow. If you miss one of them, you don't grow. You have to have all four of them. And if you have all four of them, then you can improve in something. And if you improve your life, then you are able to help others. If you don't improve your life, you're not able to help others. And so it's one thing to be dependent on other people like a child. Children are dependent, and we expect them to grow up and be able to take care of themselves. And then at some point, they're supposed to get married and have children and be able to take care of others and raise other children. And then that's generation after generation. That's the way it goes, right? And so we expect them to grow up, and growth always happens in every child and every person in the same way. In essence, there's four basic things. Number one, you have to have a goal. You have to have an objective. You have to have a vision. You have to have a place to go. You have to be going in a direction. If you don't have a goal, then the direction is irrelevant. When Alice in Wonderland first fell down, and she got up and she started looking around, and she's chasing this rabbit, and the rabbit disappeared. So she goes and she comes to a fork in the road. And at the fork in the road is this big smiley Cheshire cat. And she asked the cat, which way do I go? There's a fork, there's two roads. Which one should I take? And the Cheshire cat said, well, that depends on where you want to end up. And she says, well, I don't know. And then the cat says, well, then it doesn't matter which way you go, does it? And that's pretty much the way you got to look at your life. If you don't know where you're going, then you don't know where you're going to end up. So you set a goal. And the goal has to have specific objectives. It has to be specific enough that you're reaching for it. It has to be a little bit difficult. It has to be something that is going to require you to stretch and be different and grow and learn something new, for example. So let's say your goal is to get a PhD in psychology, right? PhD psychology, what's missing from that? Well, what's missing is a date. And so you go to the college and you say, okay, I'm going to get a PhD psychology. What's that going to take? Well, it's going to take this amount of time, this amount of money, and these classes. And you're going to have to get, credits in all these classes, pass them all. And then we will give you a degree in your PhD in psychology. And so then you start off on going down that road. So you show up at each class and you do the tests and you do the research that you're supposed to do and all that stuff. That's the way everything goes. And so when children are born, nobody, not necessarily, but most parents don't sit down and write down, okay, so this is what my child's going to be when they grow up. But they do have an idea in their head. And they're going, okay, we expect these milestones to happen. Okay, she's a year old. She should be walking by now-ish. If it's a year and a month or whatever, somewhere around there, she's just getting started. Okay, she's 2 years old. She should be talking. She should be saying words and, started to understand. We go through the milestones and have an expectation and it's time defined. And it's specific. So, we know what to expect. And so when you want to grow, when you want to improve, you do the same thing. And that's what needs to happen. If you want to learn to play the piano, you have to be able to say, okay, in 1 year, I am going to be able to play Rachmaninoff's Third Concerto. And then you're going to be going, wow, that's, you're going to have to practice a lot to do that. And so what is it going to take? Well, 4 hours a day of practice if you're starting from scratch. So, you're, and then that's your goal. So you set a goal and you say, this is what I'm going to do. And then your next step is the plan. How am I going to do that? What is it going to take for me to be able to do that thing? And then that is your plan. And that's like when you go to the college, you don't make the plan, the college makes the plan for you because they're the ones that give you the degree, right? And they say, this is what it's going to take. And then step number three, you follow the plan. And then that's making a commitment. You commit to doing it. Well, when you go to college, there's a commitment that you make. It's money and you pay. And for some colleges, especially in a PhD program, it could be a lot of money. And so you really, you're putting in a commitment. You're going to borrow a lot of money. And so that is putting in your foot in the door. You're saying, I am committed to this program. I'm going to finish it. And then the fourth thing is you make a sacrifice. And sacrifices always need to be made. The reason is if you're climbing a ladder, as you're climbing a ladder, in order for me to reach up to the next rung, I have to let go of this rung, and then so I can go up to the next rung. That's the way life works. You can't go up to the next rung until you've let go of the lower rung. That's the sacrifice you make. So what sacrifices are you going to have to make to get your PhD in psychology? Well, money was your commitment, right? You're committed to this. Time, you're going to have to put in a lot of time. There's a lot of things you will not be able to do because of this commitment that you have to this program, this plan to achieve that goal. So you will sacrifice time, you will sacrifice money, you will sacrifice a lot of things that you want to do, a party that you want to go to, staying up late at night, doing things with friends. Whatever you have to sacrifice, you're going to make that sacrifice so that you can work the plan, reach the goal. So those are the four things. It requires a goal, requires a plan, a real plan that's going to get you to that goal, a commitment to the goal, and then a sacrifice. And that's true in every area of your life. If you're going to start a business, you have to do the same thing. You have to have a goal that's specific. But they call it a SMART goal. SMART is it's specific. What's
Measurable.
Measurable. Okay. A is.
Well, is it A or does it just go SMRT? Reachable?
Reachable is R, and T is time limited. What's A? Oh, anyway. Yeah, anyway, SMART goals. So achievable, right? You have to be able to do it. You can't say, I'm going to climb Mount Everest next week. Well, that's not going to happen, dude. It's just not going to happen. So you have to say, okay, this is something I actually can do. SMART goals. So you have the goal. Yeah, there it is. Specific, measurable, attainable, relevant, and time-based. Yeah. So you make the goal. You get a plan that's going to get you to that goal. You commit to it, and you make the sacrifice. So when we're talking in this program about things that need to change in your life, you're not going to get a healthy heart by doing the same things that got you to having the unhealthy heart in the first place, right? You have all of that has to change. And so you say, okay, my goal is to have a healthy heart. And then we have a plan. What is that going to take? Well, that's why we wrote the book. So we give you the plan and we say, here's your plan. And it is the Healthy Heart Solution Kit. And so you go through the plan, and then you commit to that plan, and you say, I'm going to go through it step by step. And then you make the sacrifice. And in this case, the sacrifice is going to be time. It's going to be doing a lot of the things you love to do. So if you say, everybody wants to go out until midnight, late at night, you go, no, my bedtime's 10 o'clock because I'm doing the 6:10 reset. And they say, okay, we're going to have a birthday party and we're going to have cake and ice cream. And you go, no, I don't do cake and ice cream now because I'm doing this healthy diet program. And so those are the sacrifices that you make so that you can have a healthy heart. And so think about it that way. Think, what's your goal? Make a goal. You can sit down and write a goal. This is what I want. And then the plan to get you to that goal is whoever's coaching you through. Your coach is who helps you to make the plan. If you have, an Olympic athlete, the athlete doesn't sit down and, okay, I want to be able to swim, the 100 yards in 40 seconds. And just swimming back and forth, you need a coach to get you a plan who's going to actually get you to that goal. And then you do what the coach says. That's the way plans usually work. And then you make a commitment to the coach, and then you sacrifice the time and effort that it takes to actually do it and do what your coach is telling you to do. So that's how you do anything in life. That's how you achieve anything in life. That's how you be successful in your life.
I love this. This is so good. Go ahead and comment. Let us know what your thoughts are, or maybe some new goals that you have kind of thought through, even while Dr. Saunders was talking. Give us some feedback in the chat. You can post those thoughts in the chat. Again, your questions can go over to the Q&A, but especially with your health, this is one of the things that we talk about a lot too. A lot of people, like Dr. Saunders has mentioned, a lot of people will say, well, I have this health goal, but why? Why do you have that health goal? Who are you living for? Who are you, is it the people around you, or what is, I talk to a lot of people who say, after I talk with them for a while, and they often get to the point where they're in tears because they found out what really is motivating to them and what really is their ultimate goal. And for a lot of people, it's just to have the freedom to do whatever they want to do and not be restricted. And for some people, that's with their health. They don't want their health to hold them back from doing what they feel called to do or what they would desire, etc. So really dig into that. I would say if you have an assignment, even for today, would be to spend some time going through that. And then let us know next week if you're not in a place where you can tell us today, or maybe you don't want to, but spend some time on that in the next week, really digging into what your goal is and what your real goal is. And it should almost make you emotional. That's how I always judge that I finally gotten to the real heart of the issue, is when it's you feel it. You really feel it.
You feel it. Yeah. You get excited about it. It's like,
Oh.
Whoa, this is great. That's it. Especially if you come to a plan where you a plan that you can see will help you achieve that goal. It's like, oh, I can do this. And then it gets really exciting. That's emotional.
Yeah. Love it. Okay. Okay, we're getting quite a few questions that are coming in. So I'm going to dig into some of those. Here we go. Christine says a supplement was mentioned a few webinars back. I love that you said Webbies. That's awesome. A supplement was mentioned a few Webbies back. I like that. I think I'm going to start calling it that. Okay.
Webbies.
For someone with elevated lipo-A and even CRP, but I didn't write it down fast enough. Can I have it again?
Okay. So lipoprotein A is something that prevents clots from dissolving. So it keeps the clots there longer. And what ends up happening in the arteries, because the arteries pave over the clots, and those clots end up inside the wall of the artery that they will organize and form scar tissue. And so if you have a high lipoprotein A, you need to dissolve clots more quickly. And so you need a clot dissolver. And so there's nattokinase is one, and that would be about 4,000 units. It's FU. that's what it is. FU is something like functional
Dr.
units.
Saunders.
I don't know what it is. I don't know what that means. Anyway, maybe or 200 milligrams is, I think, the equivalent. And so you get like 100 milligrams twice a day. It's better to take it twice a day than once a day. So that's nattokinase, and you can also use lumbrokinase, which is equivalent. It's a little more expensive, and I don't know if it's better. There's kind of the research is kind of difficult on those. They do work to dissolve clots, but it seems like nattokinase is as good, and probably works just as well, and is less expensive. So that's the one I usually recommend. And then the other one is the omega-3. You want your omega-3s to be really as high as possible. So eating chia seeds and flax seeds and fish. And then on top of that, taking fish oil of about 2,000 milligrams a day. And that's what in the study that I've done in my own practice, as I test people, and they come to me and I test their omega-6 to omega-3 ratio, and it's like 11-to-1 omega-6 is really high, 11 times more omega-6 than omega-3. And then I put them on this protocol of flax seeds, chia seeds, fish, and then adding fish oil. And that usually gets them into the 4-to-1 kind of ratio, which is more reasonable.
All right.
And I did just post, we do have an omega supplement with fish oil. I posted that in the chat for anyone who's interested. And Leslie also posted, get 25% off by using webinar 25.
Yes. Okay. All right, next question. Erythritol has recently been identified as causing an increased risk for blood clots, the major ingredient in monk fruit. This is a message from Charles. What should we do to avoid, or what should we avoid in these alcohol sugars?
Well, just, I don't know. I think just like avoiding the sugar alcohol, if you're not taking them regularly and you're not having like a sweet tooth and just eating, we used to have these sorbitol candies and I used to eat them all the time, a lot of them, and they can cause diarrhea. And what happens with the clotting is a little different in that they change the flora of your intestines, and you have a more inflammation because it changes the bacteria in your intestines, and that increases your risk of clotting. So it's kind of an indirect way, but all of it's not just sugar alcohols. Xylitol. Well, okay, that's another sugar. What is it? What is another one? Oh, having stevia, for example. There are other things. Sucralose was another one that changed the bacteria in your intestines. So it's not just one, but I hate to say this, but avoiding the taste of sweet is really good for you. It's really good to have like sweet things occasionally and not regularly. And all of our food is so full of sugar and sugar alcohols and stevia and like everything has to taste sweet these days, even bread. Okay, so I get this bread from Costco and it's like whole grain bread, 21 seeds, and it's supposed to be really good for you, whole wheat and everything. It's got a lot of sugar in it, like added sugar, a lot. And I was so surprised because I kind of felt that it tastes sweet after not eating sugar for a long time. And so now I just get the sourdough bread that has 3 ingredients. It has whole wheat flour, water, and salt.
So,
And that's it.
They talk about sacrifice as one of the goals. Sacrificing sweet is often one of the things that needs to happen to achieve goals sometimes.
Excellent. Yes.
all right. Elmer said, I understand there are different methods to handle blood pressure, and there are many articles about nitric oxide, but I'm wondering why it doesn't work for me. I take pretty high doses of beetroot powder, L-citrulline, grapeseed, and olive leaf extracts at once, but my blood pressure doesn't change at all. Don't they produce enough nitric oxide to make my arteries more relaxed and flexible?
Okay. Thank you for that question. Okay, so I want everybody to listen to this because this is really important. If you don't know why your blood pressure is elevated, then it's very hard to change the blood pressure. You must know why. So all blood pressure elevations, if your blood pressure is high, there is a reason. And finding out the reason is really important. So if your reason is not due to a problem with dilation of blood vessels or a problem with nitric oxide or creating nitric oxide, all of those things, the beetroot, the citrulline, the arginine, they provide the ability for the body to make nitric oxide, but they don't actually, it isn't actual nitric oxide. It isn't actually dilating the blood vessels. So there must be another reason. There must be some other reason, because it's not a limitation in the ability to make nitric oxide that's the problem. So finding why is your blood pressure elevated? Let me give you an example. If you had renal artery stenosis, and that means the artery going to the kidney is narrowed, so you have low flow to one or both kidneys, then what ends up happening is the kidney goes, we're not getting enough blood flow here. We need more pressure, and raises the blood pressure. Why? It excretes something called renin. Renin works with something called angiotensin. And angiotensin causes constriction of blood vessels. And until you deal with that system, it's not going to be fixed by taking beetroot, for example. So finding out why. Well, what if it's not the kidneys? What if it's your adrenal glands? Well, then you have to deal with the adrenal glands. It's not going to help you to fix the kidneys if your problem is your adrenal glands. So make sure you know why your blood pressure is elevated first, and then start treating it.
All right, good stuff here. Let me just make sure I'm not missing something. Okay. Let's see. Jill says, as part of my plan, I'm taking Healthy Heart Support and Synachroma, but it is so many capsules. Would it be possible to pour the contents of the capsules into a glass of juice?
Absolutely. Yes, that's one way of doing it. In fact, that's what we often do. People who can't swallow pills, they're pretty hard to get open, but you can open them and you can put them in. We usually use something like, it's pretty hard to mix it. They don't mix in liquid very easily unless you're putting it in a smoothie or something. But it's pretty easy to mix in yogurt or applesauce, and that's usually the way we do it.
All right. Okay, so this is from Anonymous. I'm going to have you look at this if you're able to, Dr. Saunders, because these are test results. Said I recently had a CT heart dry with calcium score test done, and these are my numbers. So left main 0, LAD 386, LCX 18.9, RCA 346, PDA 0. What arteries are they abbreviated, and would this be fairly easy to reverse? My total score is 752. My blood pressure is on average around 120 to 117 over 78 to 85.
Okay, so LAD is left anterior descending. LCSX is the left circumflex. RCA is the right coronary artery, and those are the only ones that you have things that you have stuff in. Okay, so So what these are arteries that have calcium deposits in the wall of the artery, which means that they've been damaged and they've had clots form in them. And then your body paves over the clots, and then this clot organizes and gets calcium deposits in it. Okay, so that's kind of a normal process, but that tells you something. The point of your total score of 752 is you have vascular disease, you have heart disease. So your next question is to ask why. So then why is doing this test important? Because if your score was 0, then you'd be going, I don't have heart disease. So I don't need to find out why, because there's nothing to find out. So there is a problem. You have vascular disease in your heart. Now, why is it there? Is it because you have, we were just talking about lipoprotein A. Your lipoprotein A is super high. You don't dissolve clots very well. So those clots organize in your arteries, and there you have it. Voila, you have heart disease. Is it because you have inflammation in your body? Is it because you have spike protein that's doing damage to your arteries? Is it because of infectious diseases? Is it because you're missing something? If your diet doesn't have any fiber in it. So one of the things we talk about in the Healthy Heart Solution Kit is, do you get enough fiber in your diet? Why is that important? Well, there are some sugars that are required. We've been told, we were told in medical school that there are no essential carbohydrates. And that's not quite right. There are some essential carbohydrates that you need to eat. And these carbohydrates are not essential for metabolic functioning, but they are essential for building this, what's called the glycocalyx inside your arteries that protects your artery walls from getting clots that form on them. So when that glycocalyx gets damaged, it needs to be repaired very well. And you have to have all the right carbohydrates that do that. They're sugars like mannose and fructose and galactose. And they're things that we don't necessarily use for energy. And that's why we were told that there were no essential carbohydrates. But, part of the high fiber diet is getting enough of that to do repair. So is that an issue? Is inflammation an issue? So looking at all these issues, and now the test is telling you something. You have a problem. The next step is to find out why. So why is that happening?
Right. Allison said a friend was just diagnosed with congestive heart failure, was told to go heavy on the protein. So she is eating lots of cottage cheese, yogurt, meat, etc. Any comments?
Yeah, protein's a good idea for congestive heart failure, but that I don't think that addresses the problem itself. And it's important to have enough protein, and that's good, and all that, that's fine. But finding out why you have congestive heart failure would be the number one thing to do. Why? Is it because you don't have enough oxygen getting to your heart muscle? Is it because you have a toxin like mercury or lead or something that's blocking it? Do you have a deficiency of magnesium or CoQ10 or carnitine? Do you have a metabolic problem that's blocking the energy system to your heart? So finding the why do you have congestive heart failure, will tell you exactly what to do. So protein, as people age, they tend to need more protein, and that's an important thing, and that's good, and that may be part of it, but that doesn't necessarily address the why. There are whole books written on this, and for example, there's one Dr. Stephen Sinatra, a cardiologist in New York, wrote a book on what to do about a congestive heart failure. And so he recommends 4 nutrients. And that's because generally, a lot of people have these issues. The four nutrients are magnesium, D-ribose, L-carnitine, and CoQ10. And so these are common enough that they can lead to congestive heart failure. And so he just automatically puts everybody on all those. But if that's not your issue, it's not going to work. It's not going to help. So finding exactly what is really your issue, and then fixing the problem, and then the heart will come back and function normally.
Right. This is a good question from Alexander. Does fish oil make you smell bad?
I don't know. I've heard people say that, like it smells fishy or something like that. But I don't think so. I don't know. I used to eat cod liver oil, and no one ever told me I smelled like fish. Now I'm taking the fish oil capsules, but before, when I was having a tablespoon of cod liver oil every day, I don't know. It tasted fishy, but I don't think it made me smell bad.
And our fish oil has a lemon essence. I'm like sensitive to fish, and I don't find it giving me any burps or fishy taste in the mouth.
Yeah, I find it's pretty good too.
All right. Rose says, I'm currently on the diabetes reversal program and was wondering if there are separate symptoms to look for to know if I may have heart problems.
Oh, yeah, of course. If you have shortness of breath, so there's two reasons for having shortness of breath. One is your lungs don't work well. If your lungs are filling up with fluid, or you have pneumonia or something like that, then you get short of breath really easily. But there's another one that's often overlooked, and that is a heart problem. If you're not getting good circulation for whatever reason, it doesn't have to be the heart. It could be blockages in your arteries or something. But if you're not getting good circulation, then you get short of breath. So that's something to look for if you have diabetes. If you're getting short of breath with walking or just doing like your regular activities daily, whatever you're doing, carrying the groceries in and walking up the stairs, and you're like, I can't breathe. Shortness of breath would be one. Chest pain would be obviously another one. And those are the primary symptoms. But you know what? Symptoms are a late sign. That means you have really bad heart disease if you're getting symptoms. So before you ever get symptoms, that's why we had somebody just a minute ago report his coronary calcium score. The coronary calcium score is something that's saying, hey, you have vascular disease, you have heart disease, but I don't have any symptoms. It doesn't matter. You have it. You got to do something about this before you get symptoms. If you wait till you get symptoms, then it's really hard to fix.
All right. Okay, Christine said, I'm doing good on fish oil. I just need to get that test done. And can you tell us a little bit more about that test? How do we get a test done for that?
Okay, it's a CAT scan. Some insurances cover it. I find Medicare mostly doesn't. It's really hard to get it covered by insurance. And the charges we have around here are around $150 for the test. And it's a CT that you go to a radiologist wherever they do CAT scans. And not all of them can do it. So you have to ask them if they do it. And then it has to be ordered by a doctor.
Right. I love this message here. It says, for Pat, the elevated, okay, actually, I better start. Let's do this. Christine said, how do I find the reason for high blood pressure? Do we need a lot of extensive tests? And then Frank and Pat commented, for Pat, the elevated blood pressure came back to normal after starting phase 1 of the diabetes reversal plan. In phase 2 now, off all meds, including 2 blood pressure meds, past stroke.
Yeah. Okay. So how that question, or how do you find out how your blood pressure, why your blood pressure is elevated? Yeah, we have like several webinars, webbies that we've done on how to determine why your blood pressure is elevated. But it's not a simple thing, you know, and that's why you have a doctor. You're supposed to have an expert to help you muddle through all this stuff and order the right tests and find out what's going on. Because there are over 100 different reasons why your blood pressure can be elevated, and they're so widely varied. It's not like everybody that has a metabolic problem. So Frank is talking about, he goes on the diabetes solution kit, and what he does is he does a ketogenic diet. And what that does is cleanses out all of the excess glucose sugars that are hanging around in the body. It cleans all them out. And when it cleans them out, it brings back the ability to burn fat for energy. And so now he has more energy. And because he has more energy, his heart can function better. Why? Because the heart needs fat. The heart runs on fat. It's not running on sugar. And insulin blocks fat. So when you have insulin resistance, these high insulin levels, then you can't burn fat. And what does that cause? Well, congestive heart failure, constriction of blood vessels, high cortisol levels, and hypertension, because you're not getting enough energy. And so when you're not getting enough energy, then your especially kidneys and brain are going, hey, raise the blood pressure, get the blood pressure up so that we can make more energy. But that wasn't the problem. So you fix the metabolism and they're making energy and they're going, okay, we're good. No more need to raise the blood pressure, and everything comes down to normal. Well, that's a metabolic problem, but that's just one reason. What if you had a mercury toxicity that's blocking your energy? Your blood pressure is going to go up. And then what do? You get rid of the mercury, and then the blood pressure comes down. You don't need a blood pressure medication. You need to get rid of mercury. What if you had, I've talked about a kidney problem. What about an adrenal problem? What about a pituitary tumor? I had someone in a pituitary. He's got a tumor in his brain. His blood pressure is like super high. And so like super high. And they're putting him on blood pressure medications. And they're giving him, this was a crazy case. They're giving him blood pressure medications. And they also put him on neuroleptics, they're called, the antipsychotic medications, because he was kind of going crazy. It was like, wouldn't sleep at night and all this. It was all due to a pituitary tumor. They removed the tumor. Everything came back to normal. He was sleeping all night. He was able to go back to work, and his blood pressure was normal. All those medications were not helping the situation because they weren't dealing with why the blood pressure was elevated in the first place. And they didn't know the connection between the schizophrenia and the blood pressure elevation, that they were actually from the same pituitary tumor. So, finding out why is not a small thing. It's not easy. Yeah, I mean, we've just talked about toxins, deficiencies, tumors, renal artery stenosis. These are all way different issues with different specialists. And so you really need somebody who can do functional medicine well to be able to determine why your blood pressure is elevated.
All right. Anonymous said, you often mention cottage cheese as part of the diet. Is cream cheese considered just as healthy?
Oh my gosh, I love
I think we
cream
mostly
cheese.
have, I don't know if we mention cottage cheese a lot, but it comes up a lot from people who are on the webinar, which is so funny. Cream cheese is the best. I don't want to live in a world where there's no cream cheese, but there is a lot of debate about cream cheese. I do hear that a lot. So what do you think?
Well, I don't eat a lot of cream cheese, but it's a lot of fat. And so, if you're eating butter, you're getting essentially the same kind of fat as in the cream cheese. Is it healthy? Well, yeah, in small amounts. If you're living on cream cheese, I don't imagine that's very good for you. But fat, there are essential fats, and they are found in cream cheese. So, yeah, be okay.
There's so many things being posted online with cream cheese or cottage cheese right now. Oh man, they mix everything with cottage cheese to make sweet tasting things that have protein. They add it into the blender. Like, oh my gosh, it's the trendiest thing I see right now, I think. It's amazing.
Cottage cheese.
Yeah.
Mhm. You can make ice cream out of cottage cheese. I've made wraps out of cottage cheese. You can add cottage cheese to your eggs. It's
Yep.
and that's just the beginning. Yeah.
I have a friend that uses cottage cheese instead of like mayonnaise with their tuna. That's what they mix, is cottage cheese. I mean, there's just
Uh,
lots of different things. It's interesting.
uh,
Okay, next question. Gloria said I had a total calcium score of 197 2 years ago. I'm having it repeated due to some sensations near my heart randomly. The sensation can sometimes last 30 to 60 minutes. I've made diet and exercise changes in the past 2 years, and I wonder if I can expect the number to decrease. I guess I'm wondering if diet and exercise alone can make a difference in the calcium score.
okay. Thank you for this question. This is actually really important. So, the calcium score is not, it's not a score. It's not a number that you can rely on to say, oh, you're going to have a heart attack. You're not going to have a heart attack. Yeah, it's an indicator of that you do make clots in your arteries and that they organize in your arteries, and that they're not cleaning out very well. So that's the indicator. The number, the total score of 197, that's significant. You have some coronary artery disease. And so the answer to your question is no. That's the short answer. And no, you cannot expect that number to go down. Why? Because you have organized clots in there. You have scar tissue in there. And the scar tissue just is there and it's going to still be there. And it's going to have more calcium next time than the previous time. But I've had some weird things happen where I've had people repeat it. And the last one where he gave each of the arteries where the right circumflex had 100 and the left circumflex, or the right coronary artery had 100, the left circumflex had 50, and all that. I've had the follow-up coronary calcium score 5 years later. It was completely reversed, where the one that had the bad disease now has less disease, and the one that didn't have any disease now has disease in it. It's just the coronary calcium score has a purpose, and that is to tell you have an issue. And repeating the coronary calcium score is not useful. It's nothing that you need to do. It's not a number to tell you about your risk specifically. It's more of a general risk saying, oh, okay, you do have coronary disease. So why? And really what you want to deal with is why, not the calcium score itself. And that's just what's going on. You want to know why, and then deal with why. Don't deal with what. That's kind of like the blood pressure. If you're dealing with blood pressure, that's what. You want to know why. Why is the blood pressure elevated? And then you don't even have to think about the what, because the what goes away when you deal with the why. Am I making sense?
All right. Okay.
Pat,
Go ahead.
I was going to say, Pat asks, how do you get rid of mercury? Mercury.
Oh, mercury. Yeah, that's a really difficult thing to do. But I think the best thing that's ever worked for me, I've had cases of people who've had chelation therapy, and that mobilized the mercury and caused them to get neuropathy where they didn't have it before, because they did chelation. So it's not an easy thing, and it's not like everybody knows what they're doing, and some people are just creating more harm than good by taking fillings out of people's mouths, for example, and stuff like that. So it seems like the best way to deal with mercury is to get cilantro and chlorella. Chlorella is a blue-green algae, and it binds to mercury, and it just because it doesn't allow you to reabsorb mercury, it doesn't mobilize any mercury. It just all of the mercury that's excreted into your intestines, which, you know, you put gallons of fluid into your intestines every day as you're digesting food, and that all gets reabsorbed. And if you have chlorella and cilantro, then it doesn't get reabsorbed. It goes out in the toilet, and then it's gone. So so that seems to be the best way to get rid of mercury.
Is there another question about that? Let's see.
Yeah, I had a guy. I had a guy who was a fisherman, was eating swordfish. I told you about this, and I got a call from the lab, and a panic dial. It was like after hours or something. It was, and they said this guy just tested for mercury, and he's 50. So normal is up to 5, and he was 50. And he said, and so I called him. And I said, so where are you? He said, oh, I'm out in the channel in Santa Barbara. What are you doing fishing? What do you fish for? Swordfish. And I'm like, oh, that's pretty much the highest mercury laden fish that there is, swordfish. And so that's why his number was so high. But, you know, here he's 50, he's out fishing, you know, and he was feeling fine, didn't have any issues. So I said, you know, you should probably cut down on the swordfish and probably take this detox program, which was chlorella pills that he just takes every day, just with food every day for the rest of his life.
Wow.
What are
Right.
some symptoms of having too much mercury?
Highly variable. Mercury, it only takes 5 atoms of mercury to kill a nerve cell, for example, because it blocks the energy production. And so it's highly variable depending on the type of mercury. So elemental mercury, it turns out, is really not a big deal. And the elemental mercury is like what's in people's teeth, for example. That kind of mercury doesn't do a lot of damage, you know, but people do have potentially neurological problems because the nerves are most sensitive to the energy. But heart problems are not uncommon either. And there's 2 different kinds. One is methyl mercury, which is really dangerous because the methyl on the mercury allows it to be brought in to the cells and create a problem, whereas elemental mercury doesn't have any way of getting into the cells. Yeah, it hangs around a long time, and it is toxic if it gets into the cells, but it doesn't have a way in unless it's methylated. And so a lot of fish, a lot of stuff, mercury that comes out of factories, the pollution, a lot of that is methyl mercury, or even worse, called dimethyl mercury. The dimethyl mercury is actually taken into cells as if it were an amino acid, and methionine, and it is still, it's quite toxic because it gets in there. So it damages the mitochondria, prevents production of energy, and then if it's dimethyl mercury, it changes the protein productions too. So it actually it can kill a cell pretty easily. So neurological problems, because nerves are so sensitive to energy production, but heart, again, sensitive to energy production, kidney issues, and fatigue, weakness, that kind of thing.
We have a message here from Gladys. Gladys says, I've been breathing hard for about 2 years. My blood pressure is 114/70, pulse 69. My doctor says it's my blood pressure, but now that it's down, so how he said I am taking too much blood pressure pills, but I'm still having breathing problems.
Okay, that is great. So that's a great illustration of what I was just talking about a few minutes ago, about how the breathing problems could be the lungs or it could be the circulation. And and blood pressure does not cause you breathing problems. But if you have poor circulation and your blood pressure is elevated, you could also have breathing problems because you have poor circulation. So really figuring out why you have breathing problems, there's a reason for that. And it's either your lungs or your circulation. So find out what that is, because that's really important. If you're having breathing problems, that could be a marker for heart disease. It could be a marker for, clots in your arteries, even clots that are going up into your lungs. So find the reason.
All right. Christine, okay, last question. Christine said, seeing all these blood pressure numbers makes me wonder. Mine is quite inconsistent. One time it can be 145 to 155 over 80. And another, I get lucky with about 120 over 80. Should I be researching this blood pressure even more? I'm taking 100 milligrams of losartan.
Yeah. So Christine, I suspect, you talk to your doctor about this. You probably don't need a losartan. And dealing with why, and the fact that your blood pressure goes up and down is where it should be. You need your blood pressure to go up when you need more circulation. And so sometimes taking medications will cause problems like feeling short of breath because you can't get the circulation, because you can't get the blood pressure up to get your blood circulating well. And so the blood pressure medication may prevent that. So normal people, blood pressure goes up to 180 and then it goes down to 110. And that depends on the need. You need to be able to do that. Your autonomic nervous system has to be able to raise your blood pressure when you need more circulation. And sometimes the blood pressure medication is going to inhibit your ability to get good circulation. So if you look at older people, especially where they are more susceptible to circulation issues, if you drop their blood pressure below 140, they're more likely to die because they need the circulation and they're not getting it. So I don't know how old you are, Christine, but that's something that you should look at and consider the fact that your autonomic nervous system needs to be able to raise your blood pressure.
I think a good way to end this webinar will be to echo what Patricia said. Patricia said, sounds like we should be asking our doctors a lot more whys than we do.
Yeah. So in medical school, we're taught to look for what's going on here. And oh, you have high blood pressure. Oh, you have Parkinson's disease. Oh, you have Alzheimer's disease. Oh, you have, and they name the what. And then, okay, so thank you for that. Now, why? That's the next question. And that's really where you should go. I totally agree.
Okay. Thank you, Dr. Saunders. We appreciate you so much. We'll see you next week.
All right.
And all of you, just a reminder that you can go to bartonwebinar.com, use code webinar25. That's one word, webinar25 to save 25%. Anything else from you, Cheryl?
No, we're good. That was a great webinar.
It was. All right. Thank you so much, everyone. We'll see you next week. Same time, same place.